What's up, guys? It is Sam here, and I wanted to talk about how quickly things are changing. Let me get this fucking thing set up. The world, and I'm sure every generation has thought the same thing about how quickly the world is changing, or that there's a doom and gloom happening in whatever decade or generation was somebody was thinking about that, or basically anytime there was the news. And how the change and the pace of change over the last decade or two, I feel as though has increased at a rate much faster than, decades prior. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. But before we do that, make sure you press that red button to subscribe. And there's a little bell notification. Just gently tap that shit. Okay, so when I think about it, I think it comes down to two fundamental things for what is really impacting the change and what is impacting the pace of change. The democratization of people, and as a side effect, information, and the dissemination of that information. So, if you think about it, information. Think about your grandparents, right? Like your if your parents are not around anymore, if your grandparents are not around, think about all of the experiences they have in life, right? And if they have passed away, that information is gone, right? There's the grandparents trickle down a little bit to the kids, right? And the kids trickle down a little bit to the kids' kids. Some of that information. Now, the rest of it's gone forever. And you have people or pockets, geographic locations around the world where there's a tremendous amount of IP, intellectual property, knowledge. Think of it, when I say IP, think of it as knowledge. Around the world, different pockets, right? Or within individuals, within a community, right? You might have one person that has a very unique perspective or knowledge about something. And the internet allows for the democratization of this information and of these individuals. So, through the different platforms, this information can get disseminated. So all of this information that was in pockets or within individual people is in the process over the last decade or longer of it, instead of being with me, like the things that I know, or maybe not a great example, but other people, wherever it is getting spread out all over the internet. And somebody who works as a farmer sees one of these videos, or then sees some other videos, or whatever the case is, and he's able to synthesize that data to make better decisions for himself. That those decisions, based upon his experience, he was able to make, one of those every year, or whatever the case is. But now he's able to see how other people are doing it, and based on his knowledge of whatever it is, and taking experiences over here and over here, he's able to iterate and learn much more quickly, which allows them to make more quickly, make changes much more rapidly to better himself or his family or his business or whatever the case is. And that type of thing, when you multiply that times millions of individuals, both here in the United States and then around the world, you also have the increasing rate of use of the internet, both on two fronts. You have more individuals using it that have never used the internet before, and then the people who are on the internet are using it more frequently, so the usage is going up, both in terms of the number of users and the quantity of individual amount of time used per user. And this democratization of the information is spreading out both within the United States and around the world, which allows people to make better decisions. Because literally, if they had an idea about something, well, what if I did that? I wonder how that would affect. Like, they can fucking Google it and learn more about the individual pieces of whatever it is that they're thinking. And because of all this dissemination, people can learn so much faster. And if you think about it on a macro scale, this information is going to take probably, I would like to be optimistic, I'm just going to say a couple years, but no, honestly, it's probably going to take a decade or two. People don't necessarily like change. Some people don't like change. So it might take a decade longer to actually get the vast majority of that information out in a environment that you could say the vast majority of people know. And as that's happening, and as the collective is able to make better decisions, in my opinion, I think the actual pace of change, the slope of the line, is going to increase because people can make better decisions. Their perspective on life is able to get influenced if there's lots of people in towns or small cities around the country here in the United States where maybe there was only a couple 100,000, maybe only like not even a couple 100,000, maybe there was only like 20, like less than 100,000 people in the city, right? And like how much perspective can you get? I'm not downplaying that. You can get plenty of perspective, but sometimes they're so tight into like a little niche of group of friends, right? And then they find the internet and people, they'll watch a YouTube video or read an article or hear a podcast and hear a completely different perspective that they've never even slightly thought about. And then they start to make decisions differently. And as that continues to happen and more and more and more, oh man, over the next few years, it is going to be crazy. It is going to be awesome. And that is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, so that I could use this video in the future as we see things change much more rapidly. There was a time when I was in my last class in undergrad, and I don't remember, we were doing a presentation about like the future or what we thought things would happen, and mine was on flexibility, in that my thoughts were that flexibility not necessarily factored into like an interview process, not really factored into the value proposition of paying people in the working environment. So my theory was that as the world continues to change, the value of flexibility and adaptability is going to continue increasing. So the people who are flexible, the people who are able to quickly adapt, are going to be much more valuable to the marketplace because the environment. Think about how quickly companies are going to have to iterate to stay even slightly relevant. Because things are changing so rapidly, the companies are going to have to iterate so fast. So people who are very rigid and inflexible they're going to have to change, or they're going to have to leave. Like, companies are not going to survive. And the people who have that flexibility, and this is back in 2003, 2004-ish time frame. I was like, that's what I think. And it's starting to play out. Not at all in the time frame I thought. That's why I think a decade or a decade and a half, 2 decades is what I'm thinking. That because the information takes a while you have to disseminate it, but then it also has to like get distilled. It has to be synthesized into the knowledge base of the collective, So it takes time, but it is super interesting to play out. Anyways, I'm curious to know what you guys think I missed, or what your thoughts are on this. I'm very excited to see how much faster things continue to change in the future, and how much more I can continue to grow from the collective of the information that I am able to glean more rapidly. I'm always thinking about how I can make better decisions, or how I'm able to learn more quickly, or whatever the case is. And that's going to be very interesting how that plays out into the future. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you like content like this. I put out content every single day like a crazy motherfucker. By the way, if you guys have any interest in baseball cards, I've got a shitload of baseball cards over there. So if you have any interest in baseball cards, shoot me a DM on Instagram or on any of the social in the description, and we can work something out. And I can send some pictures to you. You can let me know, give me an offer if you're interested, and I can ship them to you or whatever. Peace.